So, can you tell me what we're talking about today?
Yes, today we are doing emotional dysregulation. Now, if you don't know what emotional dysregulation is, it is a symptom heavily linked to ADHD. But actually, it's not a symptom in the criteria of ICD and DSM, the two criteria bodies for diagnosing ADHD. It's not actually used in them. So there is a connection, but scientists and studies and doctors are not sure what the connection fully is yet. So more research needs to be done, but we're going to talk about it because it is heavily linked to ADHD. So what is emotional dysregulation, Laura? Do you know? Well, what do you think it is?
So emotional dysregulation to me is a rush and surge of energy that seems to prevail so much more than a lot of people around me, and it can be anger, it can be excitement, it can be sadness, it can be despair, and it's catastrophization. But the thing is, it's linked with impulsivity because I'll feel things and I'm much more likely to act on things than other people. A lot of people around me seem to be able to let things go, whereas me, I get so worked up, and it's almost like a high. It's like I feel like I'm on a high when I'm angry or when I've got these high emotions, and I'm like, oh my god, it's not feeling things in a straight line. It's feeling things a lot. Whatever you feel them a lot. So it makes for a very interesting time, let's say.
And I think the narrative here is emotional dysregulation is birthed from a normal emotion that we all feel, that everybody feels. In those with ADHD, the emotional dysregulation lasts longer and is more intense, and like you said, we're more likely to act on it. A neurotypical person is able to just, calm down, maybe forget about it and do something else. Us, on the other hand, with our ADHD brains, our beautiful ADHD brains, we're not able to do that as well. It's due to things like inhibition, which is being able to control your impulsivity. A lot of us, people with ADHD, do not have. We've got self-soothing. And to be fair, we're actually pretty good at this. I know you have a lot of self-soothing things, but a lot of times we manifest self-soothing to get over our emotional dysregulation in an unhealthy way, like eating pizza and messing up your diet for the week or something like that. People who can refocus easier have a better time regulating their emotions with self-regulation. But because we're not able to do that, people with ADHD aren't able to do that, it's difficult for us to self-regulate because our refocus goes from, what did I say? How did I make this person feel? Was it good or bad initially? What was the outcome from it? And there's so much stuff in your head, like playing round with you, that you actually can't refocus. All you're doing is focusing on that and the situation.
I'd say, for me, emotional dysregulation is both my worst enemy and my best friend, because it can be very fun and it can be very... It keeps me on my toes because I'm interested by it. I go from one thing to the next. 1 minute I'll be on the floor crying about something like my life is never going to be the same again because of something that's happened just a second ago. And then later on in the evening, someone will say something to me like, "Oh, you're strong," or like, you're amazing at X, Y, Z. And then I'll go on a walk and pretend I'm in a music video, like, holy shit. I have this euphoria where I'm like, oh my god, I am something else. Like I am insanely cool and good.
What?
And then the trigger comes back, and then suddenly I'm like, oh my god, I can't cope. My life is never going to be the same again. I'm sad. I hate everything. I hate everyone.
That is actually crazy that you've said that, Laura. Because I actually didn't know, you did that and, stuck music on and pretended you were in a music video. Because I actually do that too. Do you know what I do, though? I think mine manifests in a different way. I, stick on a song, and then I act like I'm performing the song just in the street to just get, that energy out of what I'm feeling. And I'll stick on a really angry song if I'm feeling particularly angry. If I'm feeling particularly sad, I'll put on a really sad song. And generally, I have before just started, sobbing in the streets. just like to a sad song because of like how emotionally dysregulated I am. Obviously I can't control it, so started sobbing.
Sometimes I feel like I'm in a movie, and I actually,
yeah, and then,
like
you're a
last
character.
year, I thought about getting a tattoo that said "Live the movie" to help me, because a part of ADHD, where we have these strong emotions that flow in and out of us, it can be quite distressing. So a way to kind of detach yourself a bit from those emotions, think of it like you're living in a movie and you're observing the narrative that unfolds. And actually, sometimes I have to say to myself, would I prefer a life where I have such strong emotions which make me do crazy things, which make me do bad things, which make me do really cool things, which make me go out and do things that not many other people would? Would I prefer that, where, yeah, I will make mistakes, I will make great decisions, I will do amazing creative things, but also things that I regret massively? Or would I prefer to live a life that is content and there's no ups and downs? And I tell you what, I'm actually scared of what that content life would look like, because I have no idea how it feels to not be emotionally dysregulated on a day-to-day basis. And I actually sometimes worry that if I get to a stage in my life where I can control emotional dysregulation,
That would be boring.
yeah, I'm scared that I won't have a drive then. I won't have a drive to create things. Like, obviously, where I'm an art student, I work through emotion. I work hard when I've got emotion to put into things. And it scares me to think, what would I do without my high emotion?
No, I get what you mean. It's quite interesting you say that as well, because you said something about it's your worst enemy and best friend, right? I think that's such an important statement, because it's not all bad. Sometimes being emotionally dysregulated can help you. If you've got like a really creative project you need, to put into your music, or a video to make, and you've dreamt it up in a nightmare or something because you've been so make realizations about stuff. Say if there's a toxic person you need to cut out, getting emotionally dysregulated and like playing that over and over again you can be like, actually, I need to leave this person or something. It is not all bad, so I think it can help us. And just like ADHD in our brains, it can help us. It can be a real asset, and it can be hilarious and funny. And it's us, and it's completely different. People deal with it a different way. Like I deal with it with just removing myself from the situation. But how do you deal with it?
What, emotional dysregulation?
Yeah, what is your main way to deal with it, would you say?
Here's my thing. Because I get so high on the feeling of strong emotion, I don't distance myself from it. And unfortunately, if that emotion is bad or that emotion is anger, I act upon impulse. I do things that later I regret because I've made someone upset, and through that I've made myself upset. So I actually need to probably learn a bit from you, Adam, where you remove yourself, calm down, rationalise, and perhaps you could learn something from me in the sense, I don't know, because earlier you were saying that maybe you shouldn't just remove yourself, maybe you should process it a bit more before removing yourself. But I mean, it's whatever you feel, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like there is a balance to strike. But also, I should be better at processing it. But I can't really say that because I'm just telling myself to be better at something I'm never going to be better at, but something I'm never going to be as good as people without ADHD at. I deal with stuff in a different way, and that's fine. I get what you mean with the processing it. The way I would just leave it, like, if there's any contact that I can have, I will literally just be like texting or calling the person that I'm annoyed with. I'll have to try and resolve it. But my resolving, especially quite close to the time that's happened, can look quite toxic and just coming from a place of anger and impulsivity rather than rationality. I feel like, for me, that rationality kicks in like a bit later. So I'll be really annoyed, just shouting at the person, not really trying to resolve anything. But then, after a bit, I feel like maybe I'll calm down and I'll try and get the resolve, because I won't be able to rest without it being resolved. At least in my mind, anyway. It doesn't have to be physically resolved, but as long as I'm okay with it, then I feel like I can give it a rest. Maybe I should process stuff more instead of just trying to end it and end the conversation. Maybe I should stay in and feel that pain a little more, because sometimes it could be helpful.
Are you scared of feeling emotionally dysregulated and feeling strong emotions? Is that why you remove yourself?
I'm terrified of it, because when I get emotionally deregulated and get impulsive, my impulsivity can manifest in so many unhealthy ways, whether that just be hurting people, like shouting at them, or not treating people right. It can manifest in really horrible and nasty ways that are not like me at all. What is good to do is track your emotions, in a sense, and it may sound a bit stupid at first, but bear with me. Next time you get emotionally deregulated, say to yourself, why did I get emotionally deregulated? What did I feel at the time? What did I want from the emotional dysregulation? What is it that got me into trouble? What is it that I did wrong? And that's not always going to be easy to tell. You're not always going to be able to be like, oh, I did this wrong, that wrong. But at least trying to think about it a little bit is better than nothing, isn't it? If you can just track something for yourself every day, it doesn't even need to be a note on a piece of paper, just like a mental note. Be like, oh, me eating those waffles made me feel good. Why did it make me feel good? Because I was eating out of stress, because I'm stressed about this situation. Just keeping like a track of your behaviour.
I think that's really interesting, because I do that. I do have therapy at the minute, and I do CBT, and I've got this like worry diary, and it's really interesting seeing the fluctuations of patterns. One of the sections in this worry diary table is, what is the worry? So you say the situation, and then the next column you have to say, what is the worry? And every time I really have to think, what is it? And through that, themes come out. So for example, you're talking about a relationship. The worry will be, well, they're with someone else. Why am I worried about potentially seeing this boy and his new girlfriend on social media looking coupley? So what does that mean to me? Like, I don't want him anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it made me diagnose that actually it's because if this person is with someone else, then that's bringing me further away from having comfort and stability. And stability is a main theme that I struggle with. So it's understanding your emotions and the causes and the reasons and tracking them. And I'd say, like, because you just said even just keeping a mental note, I'd say that isn't enough. Because as ADHDers, we will forget.
Yeah.
Dysregulated brains will overtake that. You know, I've got things on my wall, I've got things in my notes that I need to write down, so that I don't overtake those things with anger and unnecessary things that aren't true, that aren't real. You know, you've got to keep the facts and reality in your head.
That's interesting you say that, actually, not real and not facts. A lot of the time we can be viewing it from a biased sort of cognitive dissonance. We can be viewing it from like a place where it makes us feel better. So we might come to a conclusion that literally makes us feel better about ourselves instead of the actual conclusion that we should have got. So writing it down is good, definitely. I write stuff down in my journal quite a lot about my mental health, among other things, to document sort of.
I'd say that the danger, though, of writing, because this happened to me, is if you fixate on how you feel, and you fixate on how you feel every time you're angry, you can start, and I've done this, I started to believe that the anger was too valid. Yes, the anger is valid, but I started to believe that the anger was so valid that it was real, and that anything I was angry about, any person that I had hate towards because of a painful situation, I believed that was necessary hate. I think it's really important with journaling and documenting that you make sure that it always comes back to you, and always comes back to, this is because I'm in pain, not because this person has actually done anything bad.
I get that so much, actually, because you can start to get in this pattern where I'm feeling bad, oh, it must be everyone else in my life that's doing badness to me, but sometimes you just feel shit, and sometimes it's a problem with you and you're taking it out on other people for no reason, and the fact that they take it back out on you gives you justification to then be more angry, and then you get more worked up. And it's like a cycle of just hating people, really. Yeah,
and I think it's getting reactions out of people and having control. So say, for example, your anxieties are, you know, you want to get to someone, you want to get through to someone. You know, so, for example, a neurotypical person, like, I can't speak for everyone because everyone has their moments, everyone has their days. I'm just talking about ADHD, neurodiversity generally. But on the whole, like, a neurotypical person might think in a situation, oh, I really want to get to someone, I really want to, like, this person has upset me, these people are involved, I really want them to know that I hate them. I really want to fuck things up for them. And a neurotypical person would be like, oh, I don't really want to do that. But a neurodivergent person with all this emotional drive, someone with ADHD, is much more likely to be like, oh my God, I'm going to fucking go up to this person right now and actually go up to that someone, be like, oh, this person did this, they're horrible, I hate them. You should hate them too. Be careful. They're like all these bad things. They've done all these bad things, and like, just like make sure you know that I'm the best and they're bad. I am extremely impulsive, but the thing is...
But are you the one saying, don't go over to them because they're bad and they did that bad thing, because you're viewing that at that time that they did a bad thing to you?
Yeah, I'm thinking in my head, like, I'm angry. I just always have to go back to because I'm in pain. If you're in pain, then you'll get angry, because sometimes you've got to attach something to someone, and sometimes you need to direct all your anger in one place.
It helps if it's not a battle being fought in your head, but it's a battle that you can fight against someone.
Sometimes it's easier to feel connected in an angry sense than not feel connected at all.
I feel like with that, the more you recognise that anger is just connecting to people and you're connecting it to something, the more it makes you even more angry.
Yeah.
So I feel like associating anger with people just makes it... No, now you're getting angry about you associating this anger because you see yourself doing that. It's like you almost look outside the pattern. Eventually, it becomes one step further. It's like, oh, I'm doing this pattern again. As soon as you start... Because like you said, you've done therapy. You're in CBT right now. You're noticing patterns, right, about yourself. Do you ever go, right... Oh, here it is, I'm doing this again. And then you get angry about the fact that you're doing the pattern that you can't stop. You know about it.
I get very frustrated. I was talking the other day, I was like, for fuck's sake, I just can't be asked to deal with some relationship breakup. I can't be asked for it again. And literally I was like, for fuck's sake, like, I just can't, like, it's just so inconvenient. Like, can you fuck off, please? Like, I don't want to have to deal with these emotions. Like, it's so annoying. I'm literally doing that. It makes you feel immature. It makes people around you think that you're really immature sometimes.
And it's not you, but that is a really good thing. Just
not a good thing, but that is a really interesting point. Just saying stuff to yourself in the street, just like randomly, your thoughts are popping out of your head. It almost seems like at some points, and sometimes you're just saying stuff and you don't even know like where that came from. Sometimes you're just like, oh, you know what, fuck them, but oh no, also, oh, but no, I really like that. Oh, but fuck them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, but that, oh fuck that. And then you just like keep going back and forth with yourself in a cycle of like, oh, like I'm feeling one way, but my brain is sort of trying to direct me the other way. Yeah, I think what's important to realise as well, and I think I really want to hammer this home, is everybody gets like this, right? Everybody, there are traits of ADHD. Someone said this to me the other day, so sorry if I'm copying. There are traits of ADHD that are found in every single person. But with ADHD, it's so more intense. Think of it like a graph. A neurotypical person's just going the same pace up and down. ADHD people, they're going all over the place. The scatter graph looks like crazy. It's all the way up here 1 minute, and then the next minute it's all the way down here, and you're fine, you're calm, you're the happiest you've ever been. That is a perfect example. We struggle with regulation of thoughts, regulation of emotions, regulation of time, anything to regulate ourselves. We can't do stuff at a pace where it's one line because it's exciting. I'm going to link this back to where you said, I want that content life, I want stability, but I don't know how I'd feel with it. Would I be me?
Sometimes
anymore?
I feel like I'm addicted to emotional dysregulation.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to feel all these things. Sometimes I feel like if I was to sort out my emotional dysregulation, then I would no longer be accepted into the neurodivergent, struggles.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
If you don't have any trauma, then you can't trauma bond.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's that thing. It's like...
If I don't have any emotional dysregulation, then I won't be able to create art. I'll feel like I'm outside of the community.
Is there any times in your life where your reaction, you think, has been different to people your age?
Yeah. So I've got quite a few anecdotes, actually, and I'll just start talking about them. For example, when I was in year 13, it was in lockdown, I studied film studies and we did Pulp Fiction. And Pulp Fiction, I'd seen the posters. I'd never seen it before, but I'd seen the posters and it looked quite quite like my vibe, I guess, like alternative, quite interesting, and it had this very, very good reputation and everyone would talk about it. And so I watched it, and obviously it was a really long film. I watched it and then it ended and I started crying, and this was when I was 17 or 18 even. No, 17. I started like breaking, like just crying, because I'd spent nearly 3 hours of my life experiencing what I thought would be this amazing thing, which I found really confusing and underwhelming, and I couldn't handle how anticlimactic it was. I couldn't handle it. And the same happened a few weeks ago when I went to see a show in London. Someone said to me, oh, it's the best show they've ever seen. And I started crying after, because there was no grand finale, literally.
Oh, really?
Because there was no big ending. It just fizzled out. And then there was the bows, and I was like, whoa. What?
Yeah.
What? No, you, please, come on. Like, there
That's
must
not
be
being able to
more.
let go
Yeah,
as
like,
well of that idea in your
there
head.
must be more.
Yeah.
Come on, please. Like, I just, and the thing is, because with shows and things, I lose focus. So
Yeah.
if you don't catch me at the end with a big grand finale with loads of loud music, then I'm sorry, you've lost me, and I don't know what's happened. You need to bring it all back to me at the end.
Yeah.
And I started crying,
Yeah.
and I'm 19.
Trust me, I've cried about stupider stuff than that. I've remembered my question now, right?
Oh,
And this is really good because it links as well to what you've been saying. Do you think that need for, that the grand show of everything, the story, the being the main character, being the storybook character that you were mentioning earlier, do you think that is why you get emotionally dysregulated? Like, it's a story. The hero, right, has their complete breakdown where they lose everything, and you like that intensity and attention and excitement, because in a way, attention and excitement is almost like security, right? Because I used to get quite a lot of, like, whenever I used to, like, go off, like, really sensitive, like crying, I used to get a lot of, like, support emotionally. So I just kept doing it because it made me feel good, right? So that I would just get more and more sensitive because I would get more and more, like, positive, like, reinforcement, right? People like, oh, are you okay? Do you know what I mean? I used to do that a lot. And I like the attention, I like the security, I like the people being around me.
I love attention.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to say it. And I think the reason that we like attention is because our lives are a constant, neurotypical, the line is higher. Their general mood and contentness is higher. But for us, it's a few points below that. And so sometimes we feel the need to create issues, to create problems where we will then get that attention, so then we can feel that comfort, we can feel that contentness through someone else, like with like doing shows and things in theatre. Sometimes I think, is it because I love it, or is it because
You want to be that storybook character?
or no,
Yeah.
or is it because I want the attention to then make me feel that high? But then I think those two overlap. I think I love it.
Of course they do. Everything overlaps.
Sometimes as well, this is an interesting point. Sometimes I'm questioning who I am or my motivations. Sometimes I'm like, have I just been nice to that person because I want them to like me, or have I been nice to that person
so
because
I can just use them or something?
Have I been nice to that person because I want them to feel good?
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's a bit of both, and that's okay.
And sometimes it makes me feel like a bad person.
Yeah.
Because I think, well, am I ever truly nice for the right reasons?
And you start questioning, where do you start? Where does the ADHD start, and where do you stop? But what you see to realise, and what I've realised recently, is that it doesn't matter, because the ADHD is you, and you are the ADHD. Your mental space, how you're created, how your brain works, it's not going to be any different. You can't think of what ifs, because you are you, and you got to the place where you got to now from being you and having everything that you had. You can't change that. This is where philosophy comes in. It's like, if I was born without this, would I be a different person or not? But at the end of the day, you wouldn't be you if you were born without that. So it doesn't matter. Questioning and comparing yourself to others and questioning, where does the ADHD stop? Where do I start? Where does my true intentions come in? Putting this like ADHD as like the condition off as like a separate thing to you, you're intertwined. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't separate the way your brain's made up, because ultimately that's what ADHD is. Our dopamine receptors and the way our brain is made up, and there's nothing we can do to change that. So without that, you wouldn't be you. You may not even take art. You may not even come here today. You would be a completely different... there is a point worrying about it, but there's no point hating yourself for it.
Sometimes I think I've been forced into fulfillment. So if I didn't have dyslexia, ADHD, strong, passionate emotions, reasons for me not to be conventionally good at what you're supposed to be good at, like, I don't know, spelling and grammar and shit, like, who cares?
Yeah. I'm bad at spelling, and I'm a journalist, that's bad.
So I say I've been forced into fulfillment because if I was good at the conventional things, then I'd probably be sitting behind a desk right now as an accountant, as someone in, I don't know, as someone in marketing or something that gives you a lot of money and something that is stable.
But what I'm trying to say is that wouldn't be you.
No.
That'd be a completely different person.
That's what I mean. I've been forced into something more fulfilling.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I think I need that fulfillment because my default is slightly discontent, and I need constant things to make me more content.
Yeah.
Stimulation, exactly.
I need constant stimulation as well. We'll talk about it one day, maybe on the sensory issues.
Yeah.
So do you feel like no attention, like not being the character, not having security around you, does that make you angry? You think that links back to the anger and makes you emotionally dysregulated?
I don't think that makes me angry. I think it just makes me discontent. So
Yeah.
And this sounds like something a child would do, but if someone's getting bigged up a lot around me and I'm not getting much praise for something I've done, or say, for example, I've put a wash on, or I've sorted out some money, I'd want a reward. Doing that isn't enough. Getting the clean clothes, budgeting isn't enough. I need something more for the motivation.
Someone to say, like, well done.
I need someone to say well done. I need someone
constant stimulation,
to understand how challenging that was for me and to give me something in return. But unfortunately the world doesn't just do that.
Yeah.
And I wish it did.
Yeah.
I wish there was a pot of sweets somewhere.
You want constant confirmation of what you did was good. Well done, you did good, you can go bed. Or well done, you did good, you have a good life, now you can stop. But we're never going to get that.
I feel like that links to one of the main points of this podcast, which is ADHD in an adolescence or young adult, teenager. Yeah. And when you live at home, you've got parents or someone, not always because everyone's situation is different, but a lot of the time your parent will say well done. There'll be someone behind you cheering you on and praising you for things that understands you and understands the things that you're not good at. And then when you come to university and you lose that and you don't have that constant, it can be really difficult to feel fulfilled in doing things. And because our default setting is discontented level, because our default setting with ADHD is a slight level of discontent as a default, I don't know.
It's in there somewhere though. I know.
It's
going to come back. But is there any questions you want to ask me first?
How do you self-soothe when emotional regulation hits?
My self-soothing is I need to remove myself from the situation. Like, I just need to get away. Part of that is due to sensory issues and reasons, feeling overwhelmed, feeling enclosed and claustrophobic. A lot of that is emotional trauma. The not being able to open up about it, and the need to, it just makes me feel horrible and icky and like I'm oh.
It's my alarm telling me to breathe.
Wait, you've got an alarm telling you to breathe?
Yeah. It helps me
to meditate?
Be calm, yeah.
Oh, nice. There we go, we're leaving that in. Yeah, I also am in practice for regular meditation. In fact, that is something I do. When I get emotionally dysregulated, I leave, try to take my mind off it. I like distractions, but I feel like they never work unless it's a full mind-body distraction. There's different, like if it's really severe, I can't distract myself. But if it's something a little more minor, maybe I can go off, play a game, distract myself, something like that, or maybe do a bit of meditation or a bit of anxiety sort of reduction breathing exercises or something like that. But it's a really good way, but it doesn't work for everyone because everyone is different. If you prefer to face up to stuff more, which you should do, I feel like you should have a balance between being able to walk away from a situation where no resolution is ever going to be found. You need to know when to walk away from that, but also you need to know when to stick it out when this conversation gets hard, whether it be talking about stuff in relationships, stuff with family, trauma, therapy, anything like that. I feel like you need to know when to stick through a tough situation and when a tough situation is becoming toxic.
What I set myself to do, things that I've written on my wall, are before being impulsive, because I went through a stage of where I was very impulsive and angry and hateful, and I'm paying the price now because I feel a lot of guilt. I've written on my wall, before doing anything impulsive, before sending that message, wait for the rush, that physical feeling to leave you, then do it. Because what that'll do is it'll confirm whether you want to do it or not. But
if you don't do it after the feeling's left for you, then you don't want to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes we're in the moment when physical things are around you, triggers, people, places, things that remind you.
It's not always easy to get away from the situation.
You can't get away from the situation, and there's just something in you that says, do it. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to spread this hate. You've got to spread this anger. You've got to let the world know. And a lot of the time you will do that.
A lot of the time that manifests for me in, if I'm with a group of people, whether it be family or friends, and there's a certain situation, there's not many admittedly, but a certain situation that you just can't get away from, you have to stay and speak, I will feel very anxious and very overwhelmed, because obviously that's my self-soothing. That's what I mean, it's not always easy. The way the situation is, sometimes it's not always possible to get away, so you do need other ways of dealing with it, is what I found. Facing up to it, trying to rationalise yourself, trying to distract yourself. If you are facing up to it, you've got to come from a position of when that anger's left you. You can still be angry, but not unjustified.
But I think the anger is addictive. Like I keep saying, when I get angry and impulsive, it's almost like this thing comes about me where I feel empowered. Because for any negative feeling or anything that has negative connotations, there's a reason you're doing it, and there's positive in there for you.
Yeah.
And for me, when I get angry or when I really, really strongly feel something about someone, I feel like my body changes. I feel like I become this really strong, like physically strong person that can hurt people. This person that is superior.
That's got some strength, and you're going to punch someone's head off.
Like you turn into the Hulk, or like one of those Mario Kart characters. Like
again,
you go from Toad.
Storybook.
You go from like Toad to Bowser. Like you're like. I remember like the other day I was like.
You go from the small Mario to the big Mario.
I was talking to my friend. I was like, you haven't seen me yet. You haven't seen how I get. I can slap someone. I might not look strong, but fuck me. I have so much emotional charge. I could kill someone.
Yeah.
And I believe that.
That makes me feel really good. I can tell that's very therapeutic.
Exactly. Yeah. It's therapeutic.
But it's fight or flight, isn't it? We're still not out of our brains. Sorry to cut you off, but we're still not out of our brains where we can stop our adrenaline. We can't just stop our adrenaline. So that you pumping yourself up is going to make you feel good because you feel stronger, right? And your brain is telling you that you feel stronger naturally because you've got more energy, you've got more fight in your system, right? And for me, a lot of that is flight, just like walking away and everything. But yeah, I feel like you would try and combat it more. That's how we're different. I probably try and remove myself. You try and combat it. And I feel like we both need to do a bit of each other's. Yeah, we're still in our brains. Our brains have not moved on. Like, we haven't developed in like 2,000 years since the start of like our humanity. We haven't developed. We're still very early in a species. And I think that's what's interesting. We still feel the same way we did as cavemen. We still have the same emotions, right? We've developed technology and everything, but our brains are still the same. People still had ADHD back in those times. Well, I think they did. I mean, I don't think it's something that's, just recently developed. I mean, it is genetic as well, but do you know what I mean? It's like people were still dealing with the same issues.
The anger that I sometimes feel makes me understand why men get into fights.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I get it, guys. Like, I know, I get it.
There's some times where I just want to literally punch the face off some people, but I know I can't. They're trying to control anger into not going into impulsivity is really difficult.
Could I talk a bit about imagery? I think earlier we were saying we make up these things in our heads, we make up these images, we catastrophize. And with ADHD, you're one step ahead. So an example of being one step ahead. My sense of humour is quite specific, and I don't find a lot of stand-up comedy things that funny because I already kind of know what they're going to say because my mind works so quickly. Maybe I should do stand-up because then I'll be ahead of everyone.
I thought that one time.
That you should do stand-up?
Yeah, but I just have really crappy dad jokes. Do you want to hear one?
No.
What did the cheese say to itself in the mirror?
Hello,
me.
Shut up. So yeah, with this imagery, we catastrophize. So our brains are at a point that doesn't exist yet. Our brains are like that. This person is going to do this, or this event is going to happen, or I'll have an image in my head of someone in my family, like something happening to them, and my head is already at that stage before that's even happened.
Sometimes I get anxious about really irrational thoughts. Yeah, sometimes I picture myself beating someone up or something just because I'm just so angry at them. Or I picture myself like taking it out on them and feeling like justice is done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I create stories and images in my head where like I think of certain situations.
And you manifest it and you believe that it's actually happening.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I believe like if I was to walk into a room with someone that triggers me, someone
this
that's
would
hurt
happen.
me,
Yeah.
that I know what I'm going to do beforehand. But what I've learned how to do a bit more recently is to let emotions and waves come in and feel them, but not to linger on them. Because ADHD, it's inevitable. We have emotional dysregulation. These strong waves of good, bad, excitable emotion will come in. But with the bad, instead of feeling the bad emotion and holding on to that, because we have control of holding on to it, we don't have control of it being there. We have control of lingering. When that bad feeling has gone, when that sadness and that despair has left you, don't run for it back. It's okay. We have that control to be like, yeah, hey, that happened. Have a bit of humour about it. Like, yeah, like I did this, I did that. But, lol, like, emotional dysregulation.
That's one good thing, but you got to make sure you're not doing it too often, I would say, to push back on that. It is really good to just sometimes laugh about stuff. However, there is obviously prefaces here. It shouldn't be something too serious where if it's something you can laugh about, that isn't really hurting anyone in a massive way. And also, don't always laugh about it. Sometimes it is okay to think, oh, actually, that wasn't that funny. And I feel like, actually, that is a problem that I struggle with. Because laughing, I used to do this. I used to laugh off everything. You don't change from it. You repeat the same mistakes if you just laugh at it because it's funny, and then it gives you a rush of nice dopamine because like, you're laughing and it's a funny situation. It's a good story. No, it won't always be a good story. The same people won't always react the same way, and it won't always be funny. I've got no questions for you, but just run through times you've been emotionally dysregulated.
So another time in my life where I've differed from people my age is when I was doing tap lessons. We moved studio, and the studio floor had a different texture, and this is actually something we can talk about in the sensory issues episode. That the floor was like softer. It was like kitchen, not like hard kitchen tiles, but like almost
like rolly carpet.
Yeah, that rolly like stuff that comes out. And so when I would make the tap noises, they weren't as sharp as the old studio. And every time I'd get really frustrated, and I'd have this, every time I do it, I'd have this rush of oh, for God's sake. And I'd just keep saying it to my friends, like, oh, I'm really pissed off, like, oh, I hate the floor, oh, for fuck's sake, like, the floor, it's so frustrating. And, like, they all were like, yeah, I know, it's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah,
but
and just brush it off, yeah.
And I'd be like, well, why aren't you fighting for this? Why aren't you saying we need to do it in a different studio? Why
fight for the floors?
Why aren't you saying that you want the floor to be harder? Why aren't you saying we need to move studio? Like me, it's so frustrating. I need that, and I think it's like a stimulation. It's like that sound. It's
click.
like popping things, that kind of thing. It's like click click. Just you
need it.
You
and
need,
you're
I need
used
that sound.
to it as well.
Yeah, I'm used to it, and it's not what I'm used to, and I'd get really really pissed off. Another example is I decide if I'm going to like something or not within like the first 5 minutes. Like, say for example, I'm watching a show. About 5 minutes in, I'm like, do I like this or do I not? If I decide that I don't like it so far, which a lot of the time I don't because it hasn't really got into it, I'm like, well, I'm bored now, so I'm going to be bored for the whole thing. And the whole time I just start analysing it, and I'm like, how am I going to feel at the end? Do I want to see this again when I haven't even watched like 10 minutes of it? Yeah. And I really want to get better at living in the moment of things. And another thing is, when I was younger and I was on holiday, we went to Subway, and I was struggling with choice paralysis, which we can talk about in another video.
Ooh, that'll be in centuries.
Yeah, and I couldn't decide if I wanted ham, turkey, any of these things, and I made a massive scene, and I was too short to see what was in there, and the people were like, what do you want? I was like 8, and my dad was me, and he was just like, oh, you got to choose, and then in the end he just got me like ham and whatever. In this Subway, I was like, making such a scene, and yeah, kids make scenes, but I remember that feeling, that rush of like, I'm really frustrated. Why is nobody listening to me? Why does nobody understand how difficult this is? What if I choose this and then I'll miss out on this, and then I'll get frustrated, and then I'll keep talking about it, and then I won't get the chance again to get the same thing. And it's just this build of emotion. And actually I feel sorry for children with ADHD because they're seen as immature, difficult. And yes, they are difficult. And yes, they're immature, but only in the same way me as a teenager is immature, with emotional struggle, emotional stress, overthinking, lack of stimulation. And a lot of adults just think, oh, well, they're just being a kid, like they're just they're uncooperative because they want to be annoying, but they're not.
But it is just a normal emotion at the end of the day that everyone feels, but just more intense. Like I said before, more intense lasts longer. I think maybe people only notice it more in ADHD and only think we're different because it is more intense, it lasts longer, so we do it more, we kick off more, so it's a pattern. And the fact that it's more intense, it's more like traumatic to deal with if it's more, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so it's kind of, it makes you embarrassed. And I remember all the way through growing up with like family, and my cousins on my dad's side as well, because those were my mum's side, but my cousins on my dad's side, like my Irish cousins, I'd constantly be trying to show that I'm mature, even though I was the youngest, constantly trying to show, like, look, I'm mature, like, I've got mature ways of thinking, like, I'm this, I'm that, and every time, like, growing up, trying to hold on, like, look at me, I'm mature, but then I start crying when you say, no, nobody else wants to go to the theme park, so we're not going to the theme park, and it's like, but I was looking forward to that, that's what I expected, and it's only now that I'm an adult where I can be like, hey, I am mature, you can trust what I say, I am insightful, and I'm emotionally dysregulated. I'm not just immature. I'm emotionally dysregulated, and I'm insightful, and I'm an adult, and I'm mature.
You're looking at being emotionally dysregulated as a sign of who you are as your morals. It's not a moral problem. ADHD isn't a moral problem. It's a chemical. It's a chemical reaction problem at the end of the day. You being emotionally dysregulated and acting out has no bearing on if you're a good person or not. Basically, ADHD puts you at risk and puts you into more risky situations. But ultimately, the choice is yours. It's harder to deal with, but make you a bad person that you acted out. As long as you, realise you've acted out and can see where you went wrong.
So just to round the episode up, what I've definitely learned and what's come out of me today is it's refreshing being an adult, because growing up people can misunderstand your ADHD child self as someone who is incooperative, someone who is emotionally not intelligent, someone who tries to cause issues, someone who is immature and doesn't do things and doesn't listen. But as an adult, although there's different things that are harder as an adult and different things that are harder as a child, I think emotional dysregulation may actually, for me, be easier as an adult, because there's an understanding now of you're an adult, so we're not going to just brush your emotions off like we would have done when you're a child.
Yeah.
That's what society does. And I'd just like to finish off by saying, people with ADHD, we're not bad people. We just do impulsive shit. And we feel the same way as a lot of neurotypicals, but we just act on it, and we just have physical sensations that make us think we need to go down that road of anger, and we don't think, we're one step ahead as well as being one step back. We don't think. but we think about this possibility that doesn't exist, that we think
Yeah.
by being angry it's going to, and it's all this mess.
It's fine. Just to everyone listening right now, it is fine. Love yourself, guys, because like we were saying earlier, you wouldn't be you if you didn't have it. So there's no point thinking, what if? Don't go back today into wherever you're going and think, what if I didn't have this? Or what if I was better at this? Because you're not. And you're you. And that's it. There's no more that has to go into that statement, okay? You're you. Love yourself. Recognise what you do good and recognise what you do not so good and adjust your life around that. And it's a process and you will fuck up so many times. But this is to help you fuck up less.
And one of the last things I want to say is I'm fine with being emotionally dysregulated, but I'm not fine when it affects others. And that is the difficulty. I could happily be an ADHD dysregulated piece of shit that gets high off of feeling like I'm in a music video for my whole life. But when that affects others, that's when things go wrong and things come back to haunt you. I think that the main point is just remember that. Be okay with yourself and your emotional dysregulation when it's about you and it only affects you.
Yeah.
But when it starts to affect others, for your own benefit, for your own sense of self, for not feeling guilty and regretful in the future, think of techniques that work for you to bring that emotional dysregulation down, if that's what you think is best in the situation.
I think it's important that we notice our effect on other people, but also are okay with ourselves at the same time. At the end of the day, you know, you come first, you do. Every single one of you comes first to yourself. You should always put yourself first. That is a healthy thing to do. Also do recognise how it's putting yourself first in terms of emotionally dysregulation is putting other people and their reactions to you first as well.
So the most important person is yourself, and through that you don't need to be angry. Yes, you are, and so am I. But you don't need to be resentful to someone else, because that's not doing the best thing for yourself, because that's energy you could be putting into doing cool shit. The most important person is you, and through that, the most important thing to do is shit for you. And actually, shit for you is not trying to get revenge. That is shit that it's trying to do for someone else.
Yeah.
That's
And
not about you.
trust your emotions. Trust your gut, because we're not idiots. We're not stupid. In fact, we're all pretty intelligent.
What I want everyone to know is us angry, impulsive ADHDers, it hurts us to hurt you. It really does. When we hurt other people,
We feel
it fucking
awful about ourselves.
kills.
Yeah.
It really does. And I hope with that knowledge, anytime we've ever fucked up, anytime the ADHD community has fucked up and upset anyone, it affects us probably more than you'll know. But we're not going to end it on a bad note.
Yeah.
Because emotional dysregulation is a fantastic thing in a lot of situations. It's what makes people climb mountains. It's what makes people produce art. It does all these amazing things.
People have got to be messed up to make messed up, wonderful, beautiful things.
I wouldn't change my emotional dysregulation. Would you?
Nah.